I remember the last time I saw him like it was yesterday, not 2 years ago. Daniel, standing on the beach of our private villa in Santorini, golden in the sunset light. He turned, smiled that crooked smile I'd fallen in love with, and said he was going for one last swim before dinner. "Don't be long," I called from my lounge chair. "We have reservations at 8. "I won't," he promised. "Love you, Emma." I watched him wade into the Mediterranean, strong strokes carrying him out past the breakers. Then I dozed off in the warm evening air. When I woke, the sun had set and Daniel was gone. His clothes still lay neatly folded on the sand. His wedding ring sat on top, catching the last light of day. But my husband of 4 days had vanished. The Greek police searched for weeks. They found nothing. No body, no signs of foul play. Just a tragic honeymoon drowning, they said. These things happen. The current was strong that night. He must have been pulled out to sea. I didn't believe it. Daniel was an expert swimmer. He'd grown up on the California coast, spent summers lifeguarding. But what other explanation was there? His twin brother James flew out to help with the search, to handle arrangements when hope faded. He looked so much like Daniel it hurt to be near him. Same dark hair and green eyes, same height and build. But James was quieter, more serious. Where Daniel had been all charm and easy laughter, James was contained, careful. "I'm sorry," he'd said when the police finally called off the search. "I know how much he loved you." Did he? Sometimes I wondered if anyone had really known Daniel. Even me, his wife of exactly 4 days. Now 2 years later, I sat across from James in a coffee shop, staring at the letter that had shattered everything I thought I knew about my marriage. "When did you get this?" My voice sounded strange to my own ears. "Yesterday." James looked as shell-shocked as I felt. It was forwarded from my old address. Postmark is from Brazil. I read the letter again, Daniel's familiar handwriting swimming before my eyes. "Dear James, if you're reading this, you've probably been taking care of Emma, just like I knew you would. Always the responsible twin, cleaning up my messes. Well, here's one last mess for you. I'm not dead, obviously. But I needed everyone to think I was. You see, I'd gotten myself into some trouble. The kind that doesn't go away with a few apologetic phone calls and borrowed money. The kind that ends with broken kneecaps, or worse. I know what you're thinking. Why get married then? Why drag Emma into it? Truth is, I needed her. Or rather, I needed her money. That trust fund she inherited from her grandmother. Well, let's just say it came in handy. Don't worry. I left enough to raise the baby. Oh yeah, surprise. Emma's pregnant. About 6 weeks along when we left for Greece. She probably doesn't know yet. Take good care of them both. It's the least you can do, considering you've been in love with her since the day I introduced you. Consider this my last gift to you, brother. The woman you love and the family you always wanted. All yours. Try not to hate me too much. Daniel." My hands shook as I set down the letter. How did he know? About the baby, I mean. I didn't find out until after. He must have seen the test results, James said quietly. You went to the doctor just before the wedding, remember? I nodded slowly. The routine physical my insurance had required before adding Daniel to my policy. He'd gone with me, been so attentive. He planned it all, I whispered. The whole thing. The wedding, the honeymoon location. He knew exactly what he was going to do. Emma? James reached across the table, then pulled back. I'm so sorry. I had no idea he was. That he would use me, steal my money, fake his own death. The numbness was wearing off, replaced by a rage so pure it scared me. Did you know about his trouble? The people he owed money to? James shook his head. He'd been distant the last few years, moving around a lot, never staying in one place too long. But he seemed different with you, settled, happy, I thought. He laughed bitterly. I thought you changed him. No one changes Daniel, I said, the truth of it hitting me fully. He just changes masks. My son Lucas chose that moment to stir in his stroller beside me. Almost 18 months old now, he was the spitting image of his father, of both his father and his uncle. Same dark hair, same green eyes, same dimple in his left cheek when he smiled. James looked at Lucas, pain crossing his features. He's right about one thing. I have been in love with you. Since that first dinner when Daniel brought you home. Stop. I held up a hand. I can't deal with that right now. He nodded, understanding as always. James had been my rock these past 2 years, helping with the baby, handling Daniel's estate, making sure Lucas would know stories about his father. Only they were all lies. Every memory, every story, every moment of grief, based on a carefully constructed fiction. What do you want to do? James asked quietly. About Daniel? The money? The fact that my entire marriage was a con. I laughed, the sound edged with hysteria. I have no idea. We should go to the police. And tell them what? That my dead husband sent a letter confessing to fraud. That he's alive somewhere in Brazil. They'll think we're crazy. We have proof. The letter, the postmark, and there must be a trail. Bank records, travel documents. No. I said it more sharply than I intended. No police. Not yet. First, I want answers. Emma, he stole 2 years of my life, James. Made me grieve for him while he was probably living it up on my money. Made me tell our son his father was dead. My voice broke. I want to know why. Really why. Not just the excuse he put in that letter. It's too dangerous. If he really was in trouble with the kind of people who break kneecaps, then I'll be careful. I met his concerned gaze. Will you help me? He sighed, running a hand through his hair just like Daniel used to do. You know I will. Whatever you need. Good, because I think I know where to start. James raised an eyebrow. Where? The last place anyone would look for a dead man. I pulled out my phone, already searching flights. Greece, where it all began. Emma, no, it's been 2 years. There won't be any trail left to follow. That's what everyone thought then too. But look at this. I turned my phone to show him an Instagram post. A sunset shot of a familiar beach villa. Our honeymoon rental. The owner just posted this yesterday. Notice anything strange? James leaned closer, squinting at the image. Then his eyes widened. In the background, barely visible through the villa's window, a figure stood watching the sunset. A man with dark hair and a crooked smile. It could be anyone, James said, but I could hear the doubt in his voice. The caption says it's from last week. And look at the comment. I scrolled down. Someone asked about the man in the window. The owner replied that it must be a trick of the light. The villa's been empty for renovation. So why is there a man who looks exactly like my dead husband standing in an allegedly empty villa? James was already pulling out his own phone. I'll book the flights. No. I touched his arm. I need to do this alone. Like hell you do. He's my brother too, Emma. And if he's really alive, if he really did all this, his jaw tightened. I need answers too. I looked at Lucas, peacefully sleeping in his stroller. My son, who deserved to know the truth about his father, whatever that truth might be. Fine, I said. But we do this my way. Which is? First, we need to find out exactly what kind of trouble Daniel was in. The kind of trouble worth faking your death and abandoning your pregnant wife over. And how do we do that? I pulled up another screen on my phone. Daniel's old office number. The investment firm where he'd worked before our wedding. We start, I said, by following the money. Daniel's old office looked exactly the same. The same sleek glass and chrome. The same professionally bland artwork on the walls. The receptionist even remembered me. Mrs. Kingston. What a lovely surprise. Her smile faltered slightly. I'm so sorry about, well, everything. Thank you, Claire. I forced a smile. I actually need to access some of Daniel's old files. For the estate. She hesitated. I'm not sure. It's been cleared with legal. James stepped in smoothly. Amazing how authoritative he could sound when needed. They're expecting us. 10 minutes later, we sat in a conference room with Daniel's personnel file and archived emails. The official story was that we were finalizing estate matters. The truth was, we were looking for any hint of what had driven Daniel to such elaborate dissection. Look at this, James murmured, sliding a paper across the table. 3 months before your wedding, he transferred nearly $1 million to an offshore account. Client funds? He nodded grimly. And that's just what we can trace. Who knows how much he hid better? My hands trembled as I opened another folder. Inside were client complaints, dozens of them, all claiming missing funds, unauthorized trades, vanished investments, all quietly settled by the firm to avoid scandal. They knew, I realized. The firm knew he was stealing, but they covered it up, probably hoping he'd pay it back before anyone noticed. James was scrolling through emails on his laptop, but he just kept digging deeper. How much? In total? From what I can piece together, at least $5 million. Maybe more. I felt sick. The trust fund Daniel had accessed after our wedding. My inheritance from Gran had been almost exactly that amount. He married me for the money, I whispered, to pay back what he'd stolen. Emma? James reached for my hand, then stopped himself. Always so careful with boundaries, even now. No, it's fine. I need to face this. I squared my shoulders. We have proof he committed fraud. We can take this to the police. Wait. James was staring at his screen. There's something else. Look at these emails. They were in Portuguese, but the attached photos were clear enough. Daniel, very much alive, meeting with a man I recognized from news stories about organized crime in South America. He wasn't just stealing from clients, James said quietly. He was laundering money. For them. And when he couldn't pay it back, he needed a way out, and $5 million to buy his freedom. I stood up abruptly, needing to move. So he found me, rushed the wedding, used my money to pay off his debts and disappear, leaving behind a mess that would be hidden by his death. No one looks too closely at a dead man's finances. Clever, horrible, but clever. Classic Daniel, always 3 steps ahead. The photo from Greece, I said suddenly. He's going back to check on something he left behind. James was already pulling up the villa's rental website. It's booked solid for the next month. We don't need a rental, I smiled grimly. I still have the key. 2 days later, we landed in Santorini. I'd left Lucas with my sister, promising to explain everything when I returned. The familiar white buildings and blue domes felt surreal now, tainted by memories of my fake honeymoon. The villa looked exactly the same. Same infinity pool overlooking the sea, same bougainvillea climbing the walls. Same spot on the beach where I'd last seen my husband alive. We waited until dark before using the key. Inside, everything was covered in renovation dust, except for one clear set of footprints leading to the bedroom. "Someone's been here recently," James whispered. The bedroom was untouched, but something about the walls caught my eye. A slight discoloration in one corner. "Help me move this." Together we pushed the heavy dresser aside, revealing a small door set into the wall. Inside was a safe. The combination? I breathed. He used our wedding date. The safe opened with a soft click. Inside was a single USB drive and another letter. "Dear Emma and James, because I know you're there too. If you're reading this, you're smarter than I gave you credit for. Or maybe just more stubborn. Either way, congratulations on finding me." The drive contains everything. Proof of who I was really working for, account numbers, names, my insurance policy, in case they ever found me. Now it's yours. Use it however you want. For what it's worth, I did love you, Emma. Maybe not enough to be honest, but enough to wish things could have been different. Take care of our son. And James, I know you'll be good to them both. You always were the better man. Goodbye for real this time. Daniel. He knew we'd come, James said softly. He knew we'd figure it out eventually. I pocketed the drive. This is what he came back for, but something spooked him before he could get it. A floorboard creaked behind us. We spun around to find 3 men in the doorway. The one in front smiled coldly. "Mrs. Kingston, so nice to finally meet you. We've been looking for your husband for a very long time." James stepped in front of me. "She doesn't know anything." "No? Then why is she here?" The man's eyes fixed on my hand. "And what's that in your pocket?" Everything happened very fast after that. James lunged at the men while shoving me toward the window. I heard scuffling, a grunt of pain. Then I was out on the narrow ledge, heart pounding, Mediterranean waves crashing below. "Run," James shouted. So I did what Daniel had done 2 years ago. I jumped. The impact drove the breath from my lungs. Salt water burned my eyes, my nose. But I'd been prepared for this. Had worn clothes I could swim in. Unlike Daniel's theatrical drowning, I had no intention of dying. I surfaced briefly, saw James diving in after me, the men shouting from the window. Then I dove deep, swimming parallel to the shore where our rental car waited. 10 minutes later, soaked and gasping, we peeled out of the beach parking lot. "The drive?" James asked through chattering teeth. I patted my waterproof phone case, safe, along with photos I took of Daniel's files from the office. "Good." He pushed his wet hair back. "Because I think it's time to get the authorities involved. The real authorities, not local police. Interpol? Higher. Those men back there? CIA. I saw their badges when we fought. Daniel wasn't just laundering money for criminals. He was helping them launder intelligence too. Selling secrets." The pieces clicked into place. The rushed wedding, the elaborate fake death, the constant moves. Daniel hadn't just been running from mob debt. He'd been running from his own government. "What do we do now?" James pulled out his phone. "I have a contact. Someone who can help us handle this properly. But first, He hesitated. Emma, once we do this, once we turn over that drive, Daniel won't be legally dead anymore. He'll be a wanted man. It will change everything. Everything already changed the moment I read his letter. I stared out at the dark water where my husband had staged his death. I want the truth. All of it. Whatever that means. 6 months later, I sat in my living room watching the news. Daniel's face filled the screen. A grainy surveillance photo from Argentina, where he'd finally been arrested. The headline scrolled beneath. International Man and UNT Indies. FUGITIV FIANCIER in CUSTODUI. Lucas played on the floor nearby, too young to understand that his father wasn't just a sad story anymore, but a real person who would spend many years in prison. James came in from the kitchen carrying coffee. He'd moved in 3 months ago, officially to help with security while the case unfolded. Unofficially, well, some things take time to acknowledge. They're transferring him back to the U.S. next week, he said, sitting beside me. Are you sure you want to see him? I nodded. I need to. For Lucas's sake, if nothing else. His father may be a criminal, but he deserves to know where he comes from. And what about you? What do you need? I turned to look at him. This man who was identical to my husband in every physical way, yet completely different in all the ways that mattered. Who had helped me uncover the truth, even knowing it would hurt? Who loved my son like his own? I need time, I said honestly, to process everything, to figure out who I am beyond Daniel's victim or Lucas's mother. You have time, he said softly, as much as you need. On the screen, they showed the villa in Santorini, now a key piece of evidence in an international investigation. The beach where it all began and ended. The water that had swallowed one life and given me another. Lucas toddled over, holding up his favorite book. Story? I pulled him into my lap while James began to read. My son snuggled against me, secure in the simple truth of being loved. Someday, he would learn the complicated truth about his father. But for now, this was enough. This quiet moment, with the people who had helped me find my way back from Daniel's lies to something real. You okay? James asked softly when Lucas had fallen asleep. I thought about Daniel's letter, about his last gift to his brother. He'd been right about one thing. James was the better man, but he'd been wrong about everything else. My life hadn't been stolen or given away. I'd rebuilt it myself, with help from someone who understood that real love isn't about deception or dramatic gestures. It's about showing up, day after day, choosing honesty even when it hurts. Yeah, I said, reaching for James's hand. I'm okay. Sometimes the deepest betrayals lead us to the truest connections. Sometimes what looks like an ending is really a beginning in disguise. And sometimes, amid all the lies and complications, we find exactly where we're meant to be. The next week, I faced Daniel across a prison visiting room table. He looked older, tired, but still wore that crooked smile. I knew you'd figure it out eventually, he said. You and James, always the smart ones. Why? I asked simply. The whole elaborate scheme. Why not just ask for help? He laughed bitterly. Would you have given me $5 million if I had? We'll never know. You didn't trust me enough to find out. His smile faded. How's Lucas? Happy, healthy, loved. By James? By family. I stood up. Goodbye, Daniel. I'm not coming back. I really did love you, he called as I walked away. In my own way. I paused at the door. I know. But love without trust, without honesty, it's just another pretty lie. Outside, James waited by the car. You got what you needed? I looked at him. Really looked at him. Same face as Daniel, but such different eyes. Eyes that had never lied to me. Yeah, I said. I did. We drove home to Lucas, to our complicated but honest life, to all the truths still waiting to be discovered between us. The future stretched ahead, uncertain, but real. And sometimes, that's the greatest gift of all. The key felt heavy in my palm, its brass surface gleaming under the reception hall lights. Patricia, my new mother-in-law, beamed at us with an enthusiasm that seemed slightly forced. Consider it my wedding gift to you both, she said, pressing the key into my hand. The house is yours now. I'm starting fresh in Florida. My husband Michael stared at his mother. What? You're moving? When were you going to tell me? I'm telling you now, darling. She smoothed her silk dress, avoiding his eyes. The papers are already signed on my new condo. I leave tomorrow morning. Tomorrow, our wedding day, and she drops this bomb. But that was Patricia Chin, always doing things her own way. Consequences be damned. Mom, this is crazy. The house has been in our family for generations. And now it's yours. She smiled that enigmatic smile I'd never quite trusted. Just be careful in the attic. Some things are better left undisturbed. Before either of us could respond, she disappeared into the crowd of wedding guests, leaving us holding a key and more questions than answers. Well, I said, trying to lighten the mood, at least we don't have to house hunt. Michael didn't laugh. He was still staring after his mother, his face troubled. Something's not right, Sarah. She's been acting strange ever since we got engaged. He wasn't wrong. Patricia had always been difficult, polite but distant with me, protective of Michael to the point of possessiveness. But lately, she'd been different, distracted, almost nervous. Let's check out the house tomorrow, I suggested, after she leaves. Michael nodded slowly. Yeah, maybe we'll find some answers there. We should have known it wouldn't be that simple. Nothing with Patricia ever was. The next morning, we pulled up to the familiar Victorian house where Michael had grown up. It stood 3 stories tall, its gray-blue paint weathered, but elegant, wrap-around porch still graceful despite needing repairs. I'd always loved this house, even if Patricia's presence had made visits somewhat tense. Her card's gone, Michael noted, pulling into the driveway. She really did leave. The house key slid into the lock smoothly, but something felt off the moment we stepped inside. The furniture was gone. All of it. The antique tables, the Persian rugs, the oil paintings that had hung on these walls for decades. Even the curtains had been removed, leaving empty windows staring at us like vacant eyes. What the hell? Michael moved from room to room, his footsteps echoing. She took everything. Not quite everything, I realized, following him. The built-in bookshelves in the study still held their volumes. The kitchen cabinets contained dishes and cookware, but anything valuable, anything personal, had vanished. Look, I called from the dining room. A single envelope lay on the built-in buffet, Michael's name written in Patricia's elegant hand. He ripped it open, reading aloud. Dearest Michael, by now you've discovered the house is empty. I've donated most of the furniture to charity. You and Sarah will want to make the space your own anyway. Everything important is safely in Florida with me. The house is yours, free and clear. The deed is being sent to your lawyer. Please don't try to contact me for a while. I need time. All my love, Mom. Time for what? Michael crumpled the letter. What is she running from? I had no answer. We spent the next hour exploring the house, finding more questions than answers. Every closet emptied, every drawer cleared. Even Michael's childhood bedroom had been stripped bare. Then we reached the attic door. Be careful in the attic. I remembered Patricia's warning. Some things are better left undisturbed. Michael's jaw tightened. I'm tired of her cryptic games. He pulled the cord, and the attic stairs creaked down. The space was mostly empty, dust motes dancing in the light from the small window. A few boxes remained, labeled in faded marker. Christmas decorations, old papers, family photos. And there, in the far corner, a small wooden chest I'd never seen before. That's new, Michael said, frowning, or old, but I'd never seen it before. We approached together, leather shoes leaving prints in the dust. The chest was made of dark wood, intricate carvings decorating its surface. No lock, just a simple brass latch. Inside, we found only one item: a leather-bound diary, its pages yellow with age. June 15, 1992. I read from the first page. Today, I made a choice that will haunt me forever, but I had no choice. The truth would destroy everything. Michael's face went pale. That's the year I was born. My hands trembled as I turned the page, reading further. The baby isn't his. George can never know. He's so happy, already planning the nursery, picking out names. How can I tell him that one mistake, one night of weakness, means the child he's so excited about isn't actually his? I'll take this secret to my grave. No one can ever know that Michael's real father is... Stop. Michael's voice cracked. I can't. I need air. He stumbled toward the attic stairs, leaving me holding the diary that had just shattered his world. George Chen had died when Michael was 12, a heart attack at his law office. He'd been, by all accounts, a devoted father who doted on his only son. Michael had grown up believing he was exactly like his father. Same analytical mind, same dedication to justice that had led him to become a prosecutor. But if the diary was true, I followed Michael downstairs, found him sitting on the porch steps, head in his hands. It could be a fake, I offered. Some kind of bizarre mind game. He laughed bitterly. You know my mother. She doesn't do anything without a reason. He looked up at me, eyes red. All these years, everything I thought I knew about myself. I sat beside him, taking his hand. This doesn't change who you are. Doesn't it? My whole life, I've tried to live up to my father's legacy, to make him proud. And now you're still the same person you were yesterday, the same man I married, the same dedicated prosecutor who fights for justice. He squeezed my hand but said nothing. Back in the attic, I read more of the diary while Michael paced the dusty floors. Patricia's words painted a picture of a troubled marriage, a moment of weakness with a colleague, the devastating realization of pregnancy. She convinced herself telling the truth would destroy her family, so she buried it deep. But there was more. August 3, 1992. Robert keeps calling. Says he has a right to know about his child. I've told him to stay away, that the baby is George's, but he won't listen. Says he'll tell George himself if I don't. I'm terrified. Robert? Michael stopped pacing. Robert who? I turned more pages, scanning entries. Wait. Here. September 1992. Robert Matthews finally agreed to stay away. The money helped, nearly emptied my trust fund, but it was worth it to protect my family. He signed papers giving up any claim to the baby. Matthews? Michael's face went even paler. Not Judge Robert Matthews? I looked up sharply. The one you clerked for after law school. He nodded slowly. He took a special interest in my career. Mentored me. Said he saw something of himself in me. His laugh was hollow. I guess now I know why. The pieces were falling into place. Patricia's increasing anxiety as Michael's career brought him into contact with Judge Matthews. Her sudden decision to leave town just as Matthews was retiring and moving back to the area. There's more, I said quietly, still reading. She writes about watching you and Judge Matthews together during your clerkship. How guilty she felt seeing the connection between you, knowing she was the only one who understood why. Stop. Michael's voice was raw. I can't. I need to process this. We left the diary in the attic, locked up the empty house, and drove home in silence. What should have been our first day as newlyweds instead felt heavy with secrets and lies. That evening, as we sat in our apartment surrounded by wedding gifts we hadn't opened yet, Michael finally spoke. I'm going to confront her. I looked up from the thank you note I'd been pretending to write. Are you sure? I need answers. Real ones. Not just what's in that diary. He pulled out his phone. Her new address has to be on the deed paperwork, right? Michael, wait. I covered his hand with mine. Maybe we should take some time. Think this through. I've had a lifetime of lies. I'm done waiting. But when he called his lawyer, we hit our first obstacle. The deed hadn't been filed yet. No paperwork had been submitted at all. What do you mean? No paperwork? Michael demanded. She said it was all handled. More calls followed. Patricia's phone was disconnected. The realtor who'd supposedly handled her Florida condo purchase didn't exist. Every lead we followed evaporated like smoke. She's running, Michael realized. But from what? Or who? I thought about the diary entries, the mentions of Robert Matthews, the timing of everything. When does Judge Matthews officially retire? I asked. Next week. There's a big retirement party. Michael's eyes widened. You think she's afraid he'll finally tell the truth? Or that you'll figure it out yourself, now that you'll be seeing more of him socially instead of just professionally? Michael was already reaching for his keys. We need to talk to him. Now. It's almost midnight. I don't care. I need answers. I couldn't argue with the desperation in his voice. Within minutes, we were in the car, heading toward the affluent suburb where Judge Robert Matthews lived. The house was dark when we arrived, no cars in the circular driveway. Maybe this isn't such a good idea, I started to say, but Michael was already out of the car, striding toward the front door. Before he could ring the bell, a voice called from the darkness. I wondered when you'd come. We both spun around. Judge Matthews stepped out of the shadows by the garage, still wearing his court suit despite the late hour. Your mother called, he said quietly. Told me about the diary. Michael's hands clenched into fists. So it's true? The judge nodded slowly. You can see it, can't you? The resemblance? Everyone always said you looked just like George. But, he gestured to his own face, the same strong jaw, the same deep-set eyes that I suddenly realized Michael shared. Why didn't you ever tell me? Your mother made me promise. Said it would destroy your relationship with George, with the whole Chen family. And she was right. George was a better father than I could have been. That wasn't your choice to make. Michael's voice shook with anger. Either of you. No, Matthews agreed. It wasn't. But we thought we were protecting you. Protecting me? By lying to me my entire life. A car turned onto the street, headlights sweeping across us. Matthews stepped back into the shadows. Not here, he said urgently. Come inside. There's more you need to know. We followed him into the house, into a study lined with law books and framed photographs. And there, on his desk, sat an identical diary to the one we'd found in Patricia's attic. She wasn't the only one who kept records. Matthews said quietly, "Sit down, Michael. This is going to be a long night." Judge Matthews pulled his own diary from the desk drawer, its leather binding worn with age. "Before I show you this, you need to understand something. Your mother isn't just running from the truth about your parentage. She's running from something much worse." Michael sat rigid in the leather armchair, his face a mask of controlled emotion. What could be worse than lying to me my entire life? Matthews sighed heavily. The night you were conceived, it wasn't just a simple affair. Your mother came to my office late one evening, distraught. George had discovered some discrepancies in the family trust accounts. Money missing, unexplained transfers. He was planning to launch an investigation. "What does this have to do with anything?" Michael demanded. "Everything." Matthews opened his diary. "Your mother was embezzling from the family trust. Had been for years, covering her tracks with fake investments, doctored statements. George was close to discovering it all. She came to me for legal advice. One thing led to another." He shook his head. "But that's not the worst part." I reached for Michael's hand, felt it trembling in mine. "When George confronted her about the missing money," Matthews continued, "she panicked. Told him she'd discovered one of his law partners was stealing from client accounts, that she'd been gathering evidence. She forged documents to frame him. The partner was disbarred, went to prison, committed suicide 6 months later." Michael stood up so quickly his chair toppled backward. "No, you're lying." "I wish I was." Matthews pulled a file from his desk. "Here's the proof. The original documents, the evidence of her forgeries. I kept it all, telling myself it was protection in case she ever tried to deny my connection to you. But really, I was just a coward, unwilling to face what I'd helped cover up." I watched the color drain from Michael's face as he read through the file. As a prosecutor, he dealt with evidence of crimes every day. He knew authentic documents from forgeries. And these were real. "Dad's heart attack," he said numbly. "It wasn't just stress from work, was it?" Matthews looked away. George had finally figured it out. All of it. The embezzlement, the frame job, your true parentage. He confronted Patricia that morning. She claims he clutched his chest and collapsed before she could explain. But what? There was an empty bottle of heart medication in his desk. The prescription had just been filled the day before. The implications hung heavy in the air. Michael swayed slightly, and I guided him back to sit down. "She killed him," he whispered. "My mother killed my father." "It was never proven," Matthews said quietly. "The police ruled it natural causes. No autopsy was performed. But George's secretary later told me he'd been planning to go to the authorities that day. About everything." "And you kept this secret? For 20 years?" Michael's voice rose. "You're a judge. You're supposed to uphold justice." "I know." Matthew's shoulders sagged. By the time I learned the full truth, years had passed. The statute of limitations on the embezzlement had expired. There was no way to prove anything about George's death. And you were thriving. Top of your class in law school, following in George's footsteps. I told myself revealing the truth would only destroy your life. Like you destroyed that other man's life? The partner who went to prison? Matthews flinched. I didn't know about that part until later. Much later. Patricia was very good at hiding things. Until now. I spoke for the first time. Why is she running now? Because of this. Matthews pulled up a news article on his computer. Thomas Chin is returning from Hong Kong next week. George's brother. He never believed the embezzlement story, never stopped investigating, and he's finally found proof. Records of where the money went, evidence of the forgeries. He's planning to present it all to the firm's board of directors. Michael leaned forward to read the article. Thomas Chin, international finance expert, returning to take over leadership of the family law firm. The firm where Michael had been offered a partnership position just last month. She knew, Michael said. She knew Uncle Thomas would expose everything. That's why she gave us the house, disappeared to Florida. She's probably not even in Florida, is she? Matthews shook his head. She cleaned out her accounts last week. Bought a ticket to the Cayman Islands. No extradition treaty. I have to stop her. Michael pulled out his phone. Already tried, Matthews said. Her flight left 3 hours ago. The silence that followed was deafening. I watched my new husband struggle to process the avalanche of revelations. His mother a thief, and possibly a murderer. His biological father a coward who helped cover it up. His whole life built on an elaborate framework of lies. What are you going to do? I asked softly. Michael stared at the file in his hands. Proof of his mother's crimes, of the innocent man she'd framed. Documents that could reopen old cases, restore a dead man's reputation, possibly even trigger a new investigation into George Chen's death. The right thing, he said finally. What Dad, what George, would have done. I'm taking this to the authorities. Matthews started to protest, but Michael cut him off. You don't get a say in this, either of you. You've done enough damage. We left Matthews' house as dawn was breaking, the file heavy in Michael's briefcase. He was quiet on the drive home, his face set in lines of determination I recognized from his toughest cases. You know this will change everything, I said gently. Your career, your position at the firm. I know, but I can't be part of covering up these lies anymore. He glanced at me. I understand if you want to. Don't you dare finish that sentence. I grabbed his hand. I married you yesterday, remember? For better or worse. This definitely qualifies as worse, but we'll face it together. The ghost of a smile touched his lips. I don't deserve you. Too bad. You're stuck with me. The next few weeks were a blur of investigators, depositions, and headlines. Michael turned everything over to the state attorney general's office, recusing himself from any involvement due to conflict of interest. The evidence was overwhelming. Not just the documents from Matthews, but the diary from the attic, financial records Thomas Chin had uncovered, and eventually testimony from Matthews himself. Patricia was arrested trying to board a yacht in the Caymans. Apparently, her plan to escape hadn't been quite as foolproof as she thought. She refused to speak to Michael, sending only a brief note through her lawyer. I did it all for you. She still doesn't understand, Michael said, crumpling the note. Everything she did, all the lives she destroyed, it was never for me. It was all for herself. The partner she'd framed was posthumously exonerated. His family received a substantial settlement from the firm. Thomas Chen made sure of that. Judge Matthews resigned before he could be impeached, avoiding criminal charges in exchange for his testimony. Michael couldn't bring himself to forgive the man, but he understood the choice to cooperate. Sometimes justice requires hard compromises. As for us, well, we never did move into the Victorian house. Too many ghosts, too many lies embedded in those walls. We sold it and bought a small place of our own, somewhere we could build new memories untainted by the past. Michael left the firm, started his own practice specializing in financial crimes and wrongful convictions, using his knowledge of how corruption works to fight it instead of hiding from it. I've never been prouder of him. The diary that started it all still sits in a box in our closet. Sometimes I catch Michael staring at it, like he's trying to understand how his whole life could have been built on such an elaborate deception. You know what I think? I told him one night, about a year after everything happened. I think George knew about you being Matthew's biological son. I mean, he had to have noticed the resemblance. But he chose to be your father anyway, chose to love you and raise you to believe in justice and truth. That's what made him your real father, not DNA, but choice. Michael was quiet for a long moment. You really think so? I do, and I think he'd be proud of what you did, of choosing truth over lies, justice over family loyalty. You're his son in all the ways that matter. Patricia was sentenced to 15 years for the embezzlement and fraud. The investigation into George's death was reopened, but there wasn't enough evidence to prove anything beyond reasonable doubt. Some mysteries remain unsolved. 2 years after our wedding day, we finally had the celebration we should have had then, a renewal of vows, surrounded by true family and friends. Thomas Chen stood in as Michael's best man. Matthews wasn't invited. As we exchanged rings again, I looked at my husband, this man who had faced the destruction of everything he thought he knew about himself and emerged stronger, more committed to truth and justice than ever. For better or worse, I repeated, meaning it even more now than the first time. For truth and justice, he added with a small smile. And love, I finished. Always love. Because in the end, that's what saves us, not the lies we tell to protect ourselves, but the truth we face together, and the love that helps us survive it. The Victorian house was eventually torn down, replaced by a community center that offers free legal aid to those who need it most. Michael volunteers there sometimes, helping people navigate the complex legal system that once helped hide his mother's crimes. Life has a way of coming full circle sometimes. Last week, we found out I'm pregnant. Sitting in the doctor's office, looking at the ultrasound, Michael squeezed my hand. No secrets, he said quietly. We tell them everything, age appropriate of course, but no lies. No lies, I agreed. Just love. Because that's the real legacy we want to pass on. Not money or property or even a prestigious family name, but the simple, powerful truth that love combined with honesty is stronger than any convenient lie. The key Patricia gave us at our wedding sits in a frame on our wall now, not as a reminder of what we lost, but of what we found, the courage to face truth, the strength to choose justice, and the love that makes it all worthwhile. Sometimes the most valuable wedding gifts aren't the ones we expect. Sometimes they come disguised as disasters, as revelations that shatter our world. But if we're brave enough to face them, to build something new from the ruins of what we thought we knew, they can lead us to exactly where we need to be. Michael keeps a picture of George on his desk, not because of biology or obligation, but because of choice. Because every day, He chooses to honor the man who taught him about justice and integrity, who loved him enough to keep loving him, even knowing the truth. That's the thing about family. Real family. It's not about blood, or DNA, or even shared history. It's about the choices we make every day, to love and support each other, to fight for what's right, to face hard truths together. The house key led us to truth. The truth led us to justice. And justice, somehow, led us home. Not to a Victorian mansion full of secrets, but to each other, and to the kind of love that's strong enough to survive any revelation. Sometimes that's all the legacy we need.